Hey folks, welcome back to Sparkle on Substack with me, Claire Venus. I am so excited to have a brand new friend and colleague here, Destini. We have met each other only on email, and I've heard Destini speak on one of my mentors' podcasts, Ruth Poundwright, who I've learned quite a lot from this last year. I love Ruth's approach. So it was really, really beautiful to hear Ruth and Destiny bounce off each other. And I was like, who is that woman? I need to be in her space. I need to get her emails, but we've never actually met before today. So welcome, Destiny. It's so nice to see you.
Yeah, I'm super excited to be here and can't wait to have this chat with you all about Substack.
Well, that's what piqued my interest because you know how to write a headline. So I got an email, something like inside my $1 million Substack experiment. And I was like, whoa, what is going on here? Let's have a little look at this. And I was like, I'd love to chat. And I think that was only last week. And then here we are. We've made it work. So we're here, aren't we?
Yeah. And I think it's going to be a great conversation.
Yeah, and I'm so excited to understand because I know that you are big into email newsletters and email marketing, and you use email a lot. So I gleaned that, and then I joined your, sorry, I can't remember what it's called, but it's like it's a newsletter exchange hub. Like, so I was really interested in that space and what that was all about. So that was really cool. And then when I saw that you'd come over to Substack, I was like, oh, so there's a specific purpose for this Substack, or maybe you've been thinking about it for a while and you couldn't find the right idea. I'd love to know what's brought you over to using Substack.
Yeah, so it's a little bit of a windy journey, but it's
Lovely. Oh, so we
everything,
love a
right?
story selling, folks. Here we
Yeah.
go.
Yeah, so is it everything, right? So I do have my newsletter profit club. That's one of the offers that I have in my personal brand. And in that particular membership, I was getting a lot of questions about Substack.
Mm.
And they were asking, okay, what is it? Should I, be using it? Should I, move my, email list over to there? And I hadn't really explored it at all. And another thing that was going on the side was I have this experiment that I wanted to do kind of publicly.
Mm.
So I was trying to figure out what was the best medium for me to like promote this experiment and how should I be doing it. And I explore different things. I mean, you could put it in like a Google Doc and sell monthly access to it. And that was one of the things that I was exploring there. What I'm talking about is what you got the headline on, and that was my experiment to sell my B2C brand. I have a B2C brand called Hobby School.
Hmm.
And in that B2C brand, we do online learning virtual summits throughout the year, every month, and we have other offers there. But
Mm.
I'm on a mission to make that into a $1 million sellable brand by the end of 2027. So,
Wow.
what I wanted to do was kind of take people behind the scenes of that experiment and walk them through exactly what I'm doing
Hmm.
to achieve that goal. I don't know if I'll achieve the goal. Obviously, it's an experiment, but it's something that I am kind of, working towards, if you would. And I thought it'd be really, really cool to kind of take people behind the scenes and show them all the ups and downs and the twists and the curves and everything I'm doing wrong and some things that are going right. So, and I was like, okay, I started exploring, where could I do this experiment and
Mm.
how should I structure it? And at the same time, I was like, okay, I want to check out Substack. And I kind of started doing that at the same time. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I think this is a perfect platform for this experiment. And I'm a writer at heart. Like, I love writing, I love reading. I really loved everything about Substack. And I was like,
Mm.
okay, I'm going to do this particular experiment on Substack. So basically, how I have set it up, I have, obviously the notes that I'm doing, the free articles that I'm doing, but I also set up the paid newsletter, which is that actually all the juicy behind the scenes details for
Mm.
this experiment that I'm doing. And I'm like, you could correct me if I'm wrong, but I did feel like this was the perfect platform for that specific application. And I've only been doing this I'm looking at my calendar right now. I've only been doing it for a few weeks, and it's starting to grow. I have about 7 paid subscribers now. So about 2 weeks into it, I'm like, okay, I think I'm doing some things right. I'm sure there's a lot I'm doing wrong because I've never really used the platform before. But that's the journey and that's the story there.
Oh, I love that. And yeah, it sounds like because you can really capture people's imagination. This is what I've learned from the very little time that we've spent together and the time that I've spent in your world. Like, I feel very captivated by your writing, very captivated by your ideas. There's something very energetically exciting about it. So I feel like that works on the internet, doesn't it? But specifically on Substack, you've got that platform where you can kind of carve out, okay, like here's a little teaser, here's a bit more, and actually, if you want the really good stuff, I'm going to paywall that. And like, if you want to read about it all, and people do, like, people are interested for all sorts of reasons, aren't they? So you've got a timeline on that. That's 2027. Will you definitely sell in 2027? Do you know that? Like, do you know that you're going to sell, or are you just like, okay, I'm going to go through all of this and then maybe sell?
That's a really good question. I don't really know, right? We don't
Mm,
know where life is going to take us.
we don't.
I mean, right now, that's my goal. And
Hmm.
as I feel right now, like in my core, yes,
Hmm.
I plan to sell. But what if I get to 2027 and I'm like, I'm really enjoying this? And I have set up this business so that it is kind of self-sustainable and runs without me. If I got it to that point and
Hmm.
I felt like it was, kind of rocking and rolling, and I didn't have a lot of things that I needed to be doing on a daily basis in it, then I might decide to keep it. So it really, truly is an experiment. I don't know where it's going to take me.
It's fascinating. And because I work with a lot of people where their business, as much as we would like to separate ourselves out from our business is us, right? So our business is very driven by our personal brand, like our personality online, all of that stuff. I find it fascinating from that point of view as well, because that sounds to me like something that I could look at as a thing that I could create outside of myself, whereas so far the evolution of my business has been me, right? So I find it
Mm.
really fascinating from that point of view, which is probably like a different way to look at it, like where, because you still try and figure out, okay, who are the people that are interested in this journey? And that must be fascinating as well, like seeing those names popping up and like figuring out, okay, who's here, who wants to read, who wants to pay, who wants to follow along. Is it primarily your audience and people that you've told, or do you think it's new people from the Substack network?
I again, I'm just kind of like figuring this out, but didn't Substack like launch something that shows you kind of a little bit of the growth this past week? And I did take a peek of that. And
Hmm.
a lot of it, not surprisingly, would have been people from my Creators MBA kind of
Hmm.
newsletter and world there that had kind of, okay, wanted to come over and they were like looking at it and peeking at it and they were interested. So that's not surprising to me, but there was definitely some growth in there in terms of people who were, from the Substack world
Hmm.
that were kind of, interested and kind of getting interested. And that's really another thing that I want to experiment with here, right? I'm experimenting with this behind the scenes hobby school experiment, but I also want to kind of test out Substack and see if I can use it as a discovery platform. Because another thing you might not know about me, Claire, is I've never used social media.
Oh, I didn't.
So yeah,
Hmm.
so in my hobby school brand, I was looking at our email list today. We have over 40,000 email subscribers in that particular brand. We have that
Mm.
on Kit. And I've never really used email or social media for growth. Now this year we've been doing some paid ads.
Yeah.
So we've had that, but not organic social media. We have not used that really at
Mm.
all for growth.
Hmm.
So it's always been mostly through these collaborations that we're doing with our events. So that's that. And then on my personal brand, I don't use social media at all. I've been
Wow.
dabbling in LinkedIn here and there. I haven't really enjoyed it that much. And
Hmm.
when I don't enjoy something, I don't do it, which
Hmm.
is why another reason why I wanted to explore Substack is I do feel like, from a personal perspective, there's more that I could be doing organically out
Hmm.
there on social media that I haven't kind of tapped into with my business. I've tried Instagram years ago. I mean, I hated that. Never really tried TikTok. I think LinkedIn is something I could possibly get into between LinkedIn and Substack, but that's another reason why I wanted to explore Substack, is to
Mhm.
see if anything from a social media perspective I could really kind of do.
Mm. Yeah, and of course, like, people do describe Substack Notes as the nicer version of social media, but it is still social media. So when we first got introduced to Notes, so we didn't have any way of connecting really other than in the comments of our articles, and then if anybody had kind of met in real time and stuff. So when we first got Notes, it was a lot of people randomly sharing pet pictures. It's like, here's my cats, here's my dog.
Mhm.
And we were just
Yeah.
like finding an inroad, I think. Whereas now it does look more like social media, but the thing I love about Notes is that we can heavily curate it. So in only about 2 weeks of muting all the stuff that you don't want to see and liking the stuff that you do want to see and actively going through the categories and engaging, you get a curated feed that is just joyful and a really nice place to be. So you can hang out in art and illustration, you could hang out in entrepreneurship, anything you wanted really, just to kind of teach the algorithm what it is that you want to see. So that's really cool. And people, especially people that are newer to Substack, are getting quite a lot of great organic growth with notes going viral. I've never personally had a note go viral. So I kind of use that as a bit of a teaching point, really, because I think it's easy to be like, oh, well, it's all right for her. She's had 6 notes go viral and that's brought our audience in. But it's not like mine's all things like this, So collaborations and meeting up with people in person and arranging meetups and all of the beautiful stuff that I've done, really. It's been like a real journey. So I think there's so many ways to approach it. And I love it when creators are like, actually, like, this is what I've done. So one of the coaches that I work with a lot, she's never done paid ads. And she's grown her social media to a really massive following, but she tries to move them from social media to her email list. And so, because my social media is small in comparison to Substack, my email list, I'm like,
Mhm.
oh, I've done it like a completely different way around here. So, I think we can just do what feels good, can't we? Like you say, like if it
Mhm.
doesn't feel good, then we don't have to do it. There's so many other ways we can be playful with online presence, isn't there?
Yeah, one thing I've learned about me, if I don't enjoy doing it, I'm not going to do it long term. Like
Yeah.
if it's not something that I like, okay, I can sit down and like play with this and experiment with this. And then I feel like I can really do something with it. But if
Mm.
I don't enjoy doing it, like I did not enjoy Instagram, I'm not going to do it long term. So I just
Yeah.
put up my 9 grid on Instagram. I'm like, that's what you're getting.
That's it. That's there. And then on notes, so have you been experimenting a little bit with Substack notes and putting a few bits out there to promote the experiment that you're doing in your publication?
Yeah, so I learned fairly quickly in the past 2 weeks that all of this kind of ties in strategically, and I'm sure you're going to have some really great advice on this. Like I do feel like I'm just learning, but what I have been doing, and you'll tell me if it's the right approach, is kind of doing little teasers with the
Mm,
notes and say, here's something I've learned. Follow, I don't know if follow me is the right way, but I'm talking a little bit more about this in my
mhm,
in my articles and that sort of thing. So I do feel like I need to approach it strategically,
mhm,
and kind of with those notes and kind of point people back to the articles. The other thing that I've kind of looked at doing, and I don't know that I've done it 100% correctly, but in the free articles that I do, kind of teasing some of that and then pointing people to the paid stuff. So it's kind of like all roads lead to the paid
mhm,
newsletter.
mhm.
Um, and that's kind of the path that I'm trying to take people on. So I kind of put my, marketing professor hat on. I'm also a university marketing professor and said, okay, what is the customer journey that I want to take people on in this Substack world? And that was kind of how I mapped everything out.
Mhm. Yeah, that's super savvy. And what I say to people as well is that people are really connected to people on Substack. So we don't need to have like that strong brand presence. We're better to be like the authentic version of ourselves and storytell, which is what you're awesome at doing. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like the story that led you towards wanting to do this experiment, or the story that meant that you don't want to post on social media, but you're telling everybody like loads behind the
Mm-hmm.
scenes, like why you want to paywall stuff. It's like all of the why behind what's actually happening inside of the publication. and the follows are good, but unfortunately, and this, Substack, the analogy is Substack is building the plane while we're inside of it, right? Like,
Mhm,
wow.
mhm,
But that is the analogy that they use, and we definitely have felt like that, especially some of us early adopters. So I think with that, the follows don't really work very well. So I've got like 20 something thousand followers on Notes, but I get less engagement now than I did when Notes first started, when I was like nowhere near the amount of followers or subscribers or anything. So I'm always trying to drive people to subscribe because once they're inside the world of my publication, then I can take them deeper into getting to know me. They can have a community there, they can feel supported, all of that gorgeous stuff. So I think, that there's one route that would look at it like Twitter, like a Twitter feed where you can kind of share and
mhm.
follow and stuff, but it's not quite working properly for that yet. So most of us are just trying to tease things out, communicate with the people that are there, because if someone subscribes, that automatically follow your notes. So then we've got people like our colleagues that we're chatting to on there, but then reminding people the good stuff is over in the publication. And then you're so right, like it's like this is all here, but if you want to go deeper, there's more here, and reminding people of what's
Mhm.
in the archive. So yeah, like it sounds like you just intuitively knew exactly what to do.
Well, I was trying to figure it out, but basically what you're saying is, and I want to make sure I understand it, in the notes, basically, get them to subscribe. That would be the main call to action there.
But would you
Yeah.
ask for the subscribe? So this is
Yeah.
the other part of it. So it's like, and it's not like just a humble British thing. It's like the algorithm doesn't like it when you're like subscribe here. So the algorithm
Mhm.
likes it when you tell a story and people then see the subscribe button and organically press it. So if I was to sort of, and I just share, if I've written a post, I'll
Mhm.
share it to notes for sure. But the fresh note that is just the story, um, does better than like a little bit of story and like subscribe for more over here. It's wild. And obviously it's changing all the time, but usually the more personal pieces, like this is how I ended up doing what I'm doing, or like the timeline, like these went viral for a while where people were saying like at 22 I did this, at 23 I did this, at 25 I did this, and now at age 50 something I'm
Mhm.
doing this, and people went mad for those. So there's like little trends to watch and stuff, but it's also that thing of like being in a marketplace, like your favorite farmer's market or something, and being like, oh, that's happening over there, that's happening over there. And then of course, the stall that's most attractive, we want to go over and spend time in. So the behavior like shifts and we go, okay, to get into that stall and to get to know that stall holder, we need to subscribe. So yeah, it's dead interesting.
Yeah, I'm anxious to kind of, get in there and figure everything out. It's still all very new to me, to be honest.
Yeah.
It's,
Yeah.
it's something, it's a brand, it's what I described it as I started kind of digging into it. It was part newsletter, part social media platform, which I don't think there's anything out there like this. I think this
Mm.
is like one of a kind from what I can tell.
Yeah. Yeah, it is for sure. And I think that's what's been really nice for us as colleagues because it's been easier to connect and chat. So when you're a really real community champion and you want people to collaborate and all that sort of stuff, it organically just ends up happening and you see the same faces. And then you might go to a meetup and like you meet people from the online world. And so all of that has felt really nice and really beautiful. So all of that stuff could come, or you could be really introverted and just sitting right at home and send your newsletter out into the ether. There's like any which way around it would work. So I want to circle back a little bit. Obviously, you have a lot of sophisticated experience of the online world, and you've taken a very particular path. You mentioned using Kit. A lot of the community over at Sparkle on Substack have grown their Substacks, but don't necessarily know about email marketing. We get one welcome email when it comes to Substack. So I run a separate email service provider outside of Substack as well, so that I can send my nurture sequences. And
Mhm.
so I can have a CRM really, because as a business owner, I need to understand who my customers are. So it fuels that bigger ecosystem. I just wondered if you could share a little bit about that, like about that newsletter traction, that newsletter world, how often you send those? Do you have funnels set up? Like, how does that
Mhm.
all work? And how will Substack sit within that? Because it feels like a separate project, but maybe some of those people that come organically might be interested in your other work as well. So how might you manage that?
Yeah, so that's part of this experiment. I really don't know how that's going to work, honestly, but I'm hoping that I can use Substack as a discovery platform
Yeah.
for my personal brand because I really this behind the scenes experiment that I'm doing is really for my creators MBA audience because
Yeah.
I want them to see how you build a digital product business from scratch. And that's what I've done with Hobby School, right?
Mm.
So I purchased that domain name for Hobby School several years ago. And I've been on this journey to grow this audience and grow this brand and monetize this brand basically from nothing. And we've been doing this primarily through these digital products, right? So I am doing this experiment for them so they can kind of see that behind the scenes of what's working, what's not working. And if I were to go out there and buy a new domain name from scratch, if I was helping somebody either start their own business or purchase one myself, this is the route I would take because I know it's proven, I know it's worked. So I am creating this for my creators MBA audience. So and that's my personal brand. So we talked a little bit about personal brands, and that is kind of my baby. It's what I've been doing for, several years now. And over there, I have my Creators MBA podcast. I have my Creators MBA newsletter, which I send out once a week. I have all of my, like what you talked about, right? I have all of my automations and funnels and all the kind of stuff that you need an email service provider, a CRM
Mm-hmm.
for. And I think that's critical. I think people still need that in their business, but I'm hoping I can use, if I can do this thing on Substack and get it to grow, I'm hoping that some people there would be interested. They're like, okay, I love this experiment. I see how she's doing it. She
Mm.
knows her stuff. I'd like to go join her creators MBA world.
Beautiful. I love that. And there's so many ways into that. And quite often, people will say, oh, maybe I need two Substacks, like two separate Substack publications. And I'm like, no, like you just need the one that people come into and then you point them in the different directions. It's like the air traffic control bit, right? So
Mm-hmm.
you're like, okay, you're here, but also me as a person, I have this over here. And this is how you join this over here. And then obviously all the rest kind of flows through. I love the thought of people being able to be welcomed into a space in a beautiful organic way while I'm asleep or playing with
Mm-hmm.
my kids or whatever else. Like I just think that is such a wonderful thing, isn't it, that the internet is 24/7. We're working across time zones and it's very magical to just feel like, okay, like somebody came into my world today and just had a whole experience of different things going on. I love all of that. And it's so possible on Substack. There are a few places that I point people to. Obviously, we've got our about page, which needs to be really strong, but we can also have a pinned post, which we call a hero post. So we coined this phrase a hero post. So that's pinned inside of your publication. And then I utilize the headers and footers as well. So if there's something that I want to like remind people of or send people to, I'll just have that because those headers and footers stay um permanent until you change them. So every time somebody gets that into their email inbox, then they get those. And then you can have some site links as well. So if people are consuming the kind of the publication magazine style, then there can be some site links and stuff in there. So there's a few little places, but it is really its own kind of hybrid experience on Substack. And for me, I've been reading in the app now only for over 2 years because it's my job, right? So when you read in the app, you have this app-based experience that is separate from reading in your email inbox. So there's also that to kind of consider and play with, and you can see how many people are reading in the app versus reading in email. So you'll probably really like that as well as you get to grips with it and kind of work out how you want to utilize that and chat to people inside of that community.
Yeah, so I actually need the note. I need the notes from this podcast, but yeah, you mentioned several things there that I wasn't aware of, so I definitely need to go check those out. You mentioned the header and
Mm.
the footer and the pin post. I don't think I've set any of that up yet, so I need
Yeah.
to. I obviously have some more work to do there.
Well, yeah, well, you do, but this is just all ways that we have just found a way to be more shops open, lights are on, come on
Mhm.
in, so it's the razzle dazzle, really. Like, you don't need that stuff. You can still just just do what you're doing. Like it's all good. It's just that we've created these extra ways to be more welcoming and to catch attention and to give people those deeper links into our world. And that's what's enabled more success, right? Because it's easy for people to click off something. So the more that we can bring them in, you know this, right? It's like we bring
Yeah.
them in, we bring them deeper, we invite them to things, we send them over there, they get a nurture sequence over there, they get so so it's all of that stuff where we want people to spend a longer time with us. And sometimes there's an expiration date on that. Like I just podcasted with someone this morning and she was in my membership for a good year and she's not now. She sort of graduated. She was like, I just felt like I'd had the most wonderful experience. I did everything I wanted to do. I don't want to monetize it too much. It's monetized a little bit. And so like I headed on out and I recommend you. And I was like, God, I love that, because
Yeah.
that to me, it's still relatively new. I've been on Substack since April 2022, and I've been doing this work since 23. But of course, there are going to be people that come into our world and then decide, okay, like I've had everything now and I'm heading off on out. And I love that too. Like, I love that
Yeah.
it's like it can be transient and stuff. Yeah. I think I
Yeah.
thought I
Well,
had to like cling on to everybody when I first started doing this work. But of course, unsubscribe's a part of it.
yeah, I think that people, once they get what they need,
Mm.
and that's our job, right? To help them get to that point or whatever that transformation point is. Once they get there, they can go out, they can go do bigger and better things, is the way I look at it.
And you sound like such an inspirational guide. I'd love to, and this is slightly like upside down way round, but I'd love to circle back to like what brought you to wanting to do this type of work. Like, how did you end up setting up the Creators MBA and doing all of the stuff with Newsletter Profit Club? And yeah, you can bring in hobby school as well if you like. I'm just like, oh, she's such a multi-passionate, and there are all of
Yeah.
these really brave ways that you've shown up online. How did all that come about?
Yeah, so it's actually a long story there. So I started teaching online as a university professor back in 2005. I mean, really back in the dark ages where
Like 20
when
years ago,
people were,
yeah.
yeah, people were asking me, they actually thought it was a scam. They're like, you can actually teach people online at the university level and they can get their degree. I'm like, yes,
Yeah.
yes, this is a big thing, especially for working adults. So I did that for many, many years. I worked in the, educational system, did a lot of different jobs there, did a dean job, an associate vice chancellor of academic affairs. And eventually I was like, you know what? I want to kind of break out and start my own business. I had always wanted to. It just, life happened, kids happened, had babies, got my doctorate, just a lot of things happens. But eventually I was like, you know what, it's now or never. And that's kind of what I did. I just kind of, decided to start my own personal brand, which is when I started the Creators MBA brand. And I started out kind of teaching people how to teach online because I've been teaching online for so many years. So the online courses, the memberships, that sort of thing. And then I really kind of delved into how to help them to market their business because let's face it, for a lot of us, it's relatively easy to create a course or to kind of teach what we know or do a workshop. What's harder about that is building a business out of it and all the
Mm.
marketing that goes into it. And that's really, I'm a marketing professor. That's what I do. And I'm really, really good at that. So I can teach people how to take these businesses, from these domain names that they purchase and actually build a living out of them. And that's what we do in the Creators MBA.
Ah, okay, cool. That's so nice. So it's like the alchemy of the idea, and then you give them the bricks and mortar to kind of build the shop and welcome the customers in, obviously, digitally.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love
There,
all of
there you go.
that.
That's a great
Yeah,
analogy to it.
I love that one. And
Yeah.
whereabouts are you based? Do you just work from home or do you travel around and meet people?
Yeah, so I'm in the Atlanta, Georgia area, and I've been here for many, many years, and we love it here. So we'll probably be here for some time to come. But
Hmm.
do we travel? We travel, vacations and stuff, but
Yeah.
nothing major. Yeah.
Yeah, but all your work happens from home, right? You're
Oh
in
yeah,
your
yeah.
home. Yeah.
I'm in my home office. You can see this is
Hmm.
my actual home office here. This is
Yeah.
not a background. This is my home office.
Yeah, brilliant. Oh, so inspiring. Well, I'm just going to go ahead and share my screen screen and just finish off by showing people what you have? Because I think even further down the line as well, people will be so interested to see the journey that you've gone on. So I've
Yeah.
got your link up, so I'll go ahead and click on over so people can see. Not the Zoom thing. Okay, so this
Oh,
obviously
yeah.
is Destiny's profile on Substack, and then we can click into Destiny's newsletter here. So we've got a really clear, and that is definitely catching our attention, the $1 million hobby school experiment. So first of all, it's like, wow, $1 million, that always sounds impressive, doesn't it? It's like, what does that mean? And then hobby school, it's like, oh, there's a cool school for hobbies, great.
Yeah.
And then the fact that it's an experiment, which I love. So this is relatively new, this space that we've been given above our profile. So I've been
Okay.
saying to people, get creative with that. At the moment, I've just got like a photograph there that I really like of a notebook and a coffee because I am always inviting people in to like journal and all of that. So it fits. So I've not like put any language there yet, but I think it's a really savvy thing to do. And then a lovely photograph. And then we've got this invitation here, which I think is also awesome, that really says this is what it is. So if you're interested in following along, this is where you do it. So usually what people do is you can have the Substack URL like you have it here, but you can change the name. So you could call this what it is, so the Hobby School Experiment or something like that. Because the brand piece, we just looked at that, right? So we just looked at you as the writer, like the personal brand. So unless this was a personal newsletter or say if you were like a journalist or something like that, then that would be what you would have as the publication name. But otherwise, it's usually something to invite people in, because repeating your name, again, this is where we've got really savvy. Repeating your name doesn't really gift anybody anything. It's just like, oh yeah, confirmation, fine. So you might want to think about that, like you could do if you wanted to. And then obviously we've welcomed people in. You've got this pinned post already, so you've done it.
Okay, let me ask you a question. I'm a
Hmm.
little bit confused on the name thing.
Hmm.
So, what are you saying that that would be the 1 million hobby school experiment up there? The
Yeah,
title
so you
there?
might have to shorten it a bit and think about what would be a way to just like have something that sits there. But let me show you on mine because so there we go. There's my notebook, pen, and coffee.
Yeah, I
Standard.
love that.
And so my publications, obviously, they're not called Claire Venus, they're called different things. But this, so
Okay.
Sparkle on Substack is my membership, Creatively Conscious is my page behind the scenes of my business newsletter. And then I've got this pop-up one. So that's probably most similar to yours. So the URL is Claire Venus, right? Because I wanted to claim my URL. But the title of the publication is the Vibrant Visibility Challenge because I'm using it for a pop-up challenge this week. So I only ever use this Substack for pop-up challenges. So it's like its own thing, but I can change that publication title whenever I want. So, if I do another challenge and it's about growth to bestseller, I think was the one I did before this, then it would just say growth to bestseller challenge in that space there, which means that when you land on this sort of publication style, magazine style, it just gives you a little bit more of the branding of like what a person's about. So, yeah, little tip.
So you could have multiple publications, if I'm understanding you, could have multiple publications under like my Destiny Cop one. Okay.
Yeah,
See,
yeah.
I'm
So,
learning something new every day.
yeah, I know this is it. And sometimes learning can feel tiring, right? Can't it?
Mhm.
So, obviously I am really enthusiastic about Substack, and I love what I do. But I also say to people, like, you can literally just do what you want. You can make it your own and do what you want. So what I've done here is obviously I have a personal brand that is me, but then underneath that I have these separate spaces. I don't actually recommend that people have multiple publications if they're using Substack primarily for growth because it can get confusing, you've with the notes, because the notes is only ever me. So the note would be Claire Venus, and then whichever one I have as my primary publication would be what they subscribe to. So I'm like, you're better to gather people into one space. And then obviously if it outgrows that space or you want to do something completely different and have a newsletter about something that is totally separate to what you ordinarily would speak about, then maybe. But it is just harder to get the traction. So that's how I do it.
Okay, I got it. I understand it. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then you've got your links here, which is obviously awesome. And you've got your little subscribe account there.
Mm-hmm.
And then here are all your lovely little notes that you've been doing. So if anybody wants to go along and follow this wonderful experiment and see how it all goes, I love how there's a timeline to it as well. Because people like that, don't they? They like an ambitious
Mhm.
container, and it feels like you can really hold us in that and show
Yeah.
us a little bit more. And then, of course, like you say, in Creators MBA, you'll be able to say, okay, on Substack this month, and you're not trying to like rush to understand the platform. You're just like, I'm just playing around, putting these things out, and like I learned this today from Claire, or I figured this thing out in
Mhm.
the dashboard. So I think that'll be so useful to people. I'm really interested to see if more email newsletter providers people that use email service providers jump into Substack. Like, I'm just curious about that, right? Because it's like, for some people, they're like, why would I need to? And then for others, they're like, oh, no, great, I get it now. So I work with quite a lot of businesses who are like, how does this fit my business ecosystem? And we work together on that. So we pull out exactly where Substack could fit and work on what they want to do because it can be a podcast hosting tool as well, or they can host a membership there or whatever else. But for others, they're like, no, I think I'm good. I think I'll just be a reader or whatever else. So yeah, it'll be so
Yeah.
interesting to see what you feel about it all.
Yeah, I think what kind of drew me to it was the storytelling aspect.
Mm.
And I think I saw like article or something where Nike and NASCAR were also kind of going into Substack, but they were using more of that storytelling aspect
Oh,
of it.
cool.
So I was like, okay, that's pretty cool. Now I'm kind of seeing the big picture in terms of
Hmm.
how this would fit into
Hmm.
an overall brand. And it just really just started clicking with me. So when I was
Mm.
looking for a place to do this behind the scenes experiment, and I really these Google, putting in a Google Doc and
Hmm.
selling it via like a membership or what,
Hmm.
however I was going to sell it. I'm like, I'm just not feeling it.
Mm.
But when I started exploring Substack, I'm like, okay, I get it. I think this is the perfect platform for
Mm.
that one thing that I was doing. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think it's a beautiful fit. And the Substack co-founders always talk about changing the model for culture, right? So changing the culture for writers to be paid, changing and enhancing the journalistic experience. So for a lot of journalists, that's been a really like a dying industry for a long time now. Like magazines have been hard hit, and it's probably the same in the States in terms of independent journalism. But these are
Mm-hmm.
incredible writers. So when they have brought their social media audiences to Substack and monetized their publications, really great things have happened for them. And they've had a steadiness in their income that they haven't seen in years. So that reoccurring income that comes from monthly paid subscriptions has been a really beautiful thing. So there's a real opportunity there too.
Yeah. And I'm a writer at heart. Like I love writing, I love reading. So it kind of definitely fits into, that aspect with me too.
Yeah, well, I think you'll find it really fun and really creative as a reader as well. I think I've always said, like, I have my work on there for sure, but I also read for pleasure. Like, there's so much incredible writing and incredible
Mhm.
storytelling. And there's even, like, beautiful interiors bloggers that have come on over and, like, take us more behind the scenes that way. So there's so much stuff to discover. But thank you so much, Destiny. It's been so lovely to connect in at this point in
Yeah.
the experiment, and maybe we could do another one in like 18 months' time and see how it's all going. I know I'm going to guest for your community as well, so we can go into more of the whys and wherefores of how Substack works in that space. But yeah, thank you so much. It's been beautiful to connect.
Yeah. Thanks so much for having me.